So welcome to today's session, which is focused on phonics in year one. And those of you who are not new to WSO, who've had your children here since the foundation stage, you will have an awareness of phonics already. And today I'm just going to explain a little bit more about what phonics in year one looks like and how you can better support your children at home. So the aims of today's session is just to give you some more information about the Read, Write, Ink program, which we use to explain the stages of a phonics lesson, which takes place in year one, how you can support your children at home, and also just to give you a few links with further information about supporting your children at home. Just to introduce myself, I am Miss Patel. I am the English coordinator, focusing on years 1, 2, and 3. So what is phonics? You should hopefully know this already. It's a method we use to teach children how to read by linking sounds to the letters. So phonics teaches the children how to listen and identify the sounds, which really they focus on in the foundation stage. And then they really begin to learn to read and spell longer words in year one and onwards. At WSO, we follow the Read, Write, Ink program, which was developed by a lady called Ruth Miskin. We really like the Read, Write, Ink program. We do personalize it to suit the needs of our children at WSO, but it's a very systematic and structured program which covers everything that they need to know. Very, very importantly, phonics does not just belong in phonics sessions. We, of course, use our knowledge of our sounds and our letters in all instances. Reading belongs everywhere, writing belongs in all subjects. So that's definitely an important part of our curriculum. I wanted to very quickly cover some terminology so that it makes sense as I'm explaining it in today's session. The first one, which is really key, is blending. Blending is the process of saying the individual sounds in a word and then putting them together. So individual sounds such as at, when you push them together, they make the word hat. And that process of pushing them together is called blending. The next one is segmenting, which is separating and identifying each sound, and that helps children to spell a word. So if they're trying to spell the word cat, then segmenting those sounds, thinking what sounds do I need to make that word, and using their fingers to do so really helps them. So they would say the word cat and then think, the sounds are k, at. Those are the sounds that I would need to write it. Alien words, that's really important for year one. Sorry, I've pushed ahead. Alien words is really important in year one, simply because it's part of the phonics screening check. It's a way in which they assess whether or not the children can really identify those sounds. They're made up words, sometimes called nonsense words, and they include the sounds that they've been taught just to check whether or not they can identify them in a different context. Digraphs, which we also call special friends, is 2 letters, 1 sound. For example, S and H together make the sound sh. Trigraphs is 3 letters which make 1 sound, such as I, G, and H make the sound I. And we teach these to children to really recognize that sometimes 2 letters make 1 sound. And when we talk about them as special friends. They then come to something called split digraphs, which are special friends who talk too much, such as the letters A and E. When there's a letter in between them, it makes the long A sound. So A as in make a cake. This will all make more sense once I show you a lesson, hopefully. So very importantly, I just want to go over what we call pure sounds. Really important. If you're ever practicing sounds and phonics with your children at home, for example, if your class teacher has sent home the sounds that the children have learnt this week, as well as maybe a practice worksheet, when you're going over those sounds with your children, please be sure to say them correctly. So we don't add to the end of a sound. For example, the sound we would say not ma. And when we're talking about the sound, that's different from the letter name. So the letter sound is but the letter name in the alphabet would be M. The sound is the one that helps them to read and write. So there's also a difference between bouncy sounds and stretchy sounds. And as we're teaching the children the different sounds in the different stages and sets that they go through, we also explain whether it's a bouncy sound, such as ah, 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 or b, 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 or whether it's a stretchy sound, such as or and the children are actually really good at identifying whether or not it's bouncy or whether or not it's stretchy. If you need some support in terms of how do I make sure I'm saying a sound correctly, as we follow the Ruth Miskin Read Writing program, there are incredible support videos on YouTube. Once I've finished this PowerPoint, I will go through the YouTube with you. And it's how to say the sounds. The actual video is called, and it's a child going through all of the sounds and saying them exactly as they should be, which is really, really useful for parents. I want to introduce a character. We have somebody called Fred. Now, the children at home may have told you about Fred, or they might mention things such as Fred talk, Fred in the head, or using their Fred fingers. Fred is just a character, and most classes have an actual Fred the frog, who the children love. And it's a character used by Read Writing just to really support the children with that blending, segmenting, and separating the sounds. So when we say Fred talk, that's sounding out the words. We say that Fred can't actually read words. Fred can only talk in sounds. So for example, if they are trying to read the word hat and the letters H, A, and T are on the board, then Fred would be whispering in the teacher's ear and just saying the sounds at. And then the children, after already hearing that, they would then have to blend the words together. That is Fred talk. So Fred talk is just talking in sounds. That is how the children are taught initially. And there's a lot of Fred talk and focus on that in the foundation stage. In year one, where the progression occurs, is we really want the children to move on and be doing what we call Fred in the head. That is where they are not needing to sound out every single sound in the word they are trying to read. So if they are reading a word such as shop, we want them to get to a stage where they're not having to say shop, where they're actually doing Fred in the head. So those sounds are happening, but not out loud. In their head, they are saying shop and then reading the word shop. So that's the progression that we want to see and where we want to see the children using Fred in the head. Fred fingers is what really helps them to separate the sounds. This is especially useful for their spellings. So whenever we've got a writing activity, when I'm teaching year one, I will always ask the children to use their Fred fingers and their sound map. The children have all of the sounds in front of them, either on their table or up on the wall, and they will use their Fred fingers to separate those sounds and spell the word. For example, to spell the word fright, they would say fright, fright, and then separate them on their fingers. Fright. And we also get the children to pinch their fingers for each sound. Fright. So that refers to Fred fingers. Okay, so a little bit more about the actual stages of a phonics lesson. Stages of the phonics sounds. So there are 3 different sets in the Read Writing program officially. The set 1 sounds the children are really secure with at the moment, in terms of they covered these in the foundation stage, but we wanted to consolidate them and go over them and recap in term 1, year 1. So most children in year 1 are just about finishing this. So you might be recognizing some of those last sounds, such as ch and qu, that are being sent home maybe by your class teacher. And the children really, really are secure with most of these. They actually, for each of one of these individual letter sounds, they have a picture which relates to the sound. So for example, has got a girl called Maisie and 2 mountains, and there's always a mnemonic to go with it. So this also helps them with their letter formation. So you may hear your children saying things like Maisie, mountain, mountain, and that's because they're remembering that mnemonic and remembering how to form the letter and the picture they associate with that sound. They're really, really useful for the children to remember what the sound looks like and how to form it. And again, we've got one for here. For apple, we've got around the apple and down the leaf. Once set 1 has finished, so really this is the kind of important part for your children in terms of moving forward in term 2 and term 3, we're going to be moving on to set 2. Set 2 is trickier because we move on to digraphs and trigraphs. So 2 letters, 1 sound, and 3 letters, 1 sound. So they go through A, E, I, O, U, R, or, ow, and oi. Again, each of these sounds has a picture and a mnemonic, which really helps them to learn it. So for A, we have A, may I play? For E, we have what can you see? I, fly high. O, blow the snow, and so on and so forth. Once they complete set 2, they will move to set 3. Set 3 is where they learn the same sound with an alternative grapheme. So, for example, the first sound that they will learn for set 3 is E. So again, the sound E, but this time using the letters E and A. And this often is where children kind of trip up with spellings because they will always revert back to the first way in which they learn E, which is the letters E and E. So we're really going to be focusing on comparing the two to see kind of any patterns and rules and looking at whether the children can explore those patterns and rules, lots of exposure, lots of practice and consolidation and word reading to really help them get secure with those sounds and which ones to use where. Set 3 also has the split digraphs, which I mentioned, so special friends who talk too much. So A, make a cake, I, nice smile, O, phone home, are just a few of them. After those are complete, they are the main ones that the children need to know for their phonics screening check. And we will then move on to set 4, which is some sounds that aren't actually completely in the read writing program, but we really want to make sure that the children know all of their sounds. So we add these on to the end and they will be learning them right at the end, at which point the children will know all of their sounds and they should be able to read the words presented to them. As I mentioned, we will be doing some exploration into alternative sounds. So we have A, may I play, which is the letters A and Y. We have A, snail in the rain, which is the letters A and I. And we have A, make a cake, which is the letters A and E, but split by a letter between them. There are patterns and rules. So for example, AY, that sound is often found at the end of a word when it's using the letters A and Y. AI is often found in the middle of a word, and A split E is often found as the last but one or the second last sound. Lots and lots of practice will be done around this as the children are exposed to a new letter formation for the same sound. Just a little bit about green words and red words. So green words, we say, are words which can be sounded out. So they're words which the children know the sounds too, and they can use their knowledge, their phonetic knowledge of these sounds to blend them and be able to read the word. Words such as stay, a, play, fright, words which are decodable. Red words are tricky words, words which the children cannot sound out and blend. We call them tricky or common exception words, or in the read writing program, red words. These are words which simply must be taught and practiced. So we do share them. I can see some of you talking in the chat, which is completely fine. I'll come back to some answers to any questions at the end. So the red words are words which we teach. So we have a systematic way in which we teach these. All of them are covered on a weekly basis in the phonics lessons that we do from set 1 all the way down to set 3. When the children have an opportunity to practice reading them and practice writing them as well. A small mention of dots and dashes, sometimes called sound buttons. We encourage the children in phonics lessons to add their dots and dashes, which is basically just a dot if it's a single letter sound. So k, a, n would be 3 sounds, so 3 dots under each one of those. A dash would be used when it's 2 letters, 1 sound. So I, sh being a a digraph, so it has a line underneath it. So even though there's 4 letters, there's only 3 sounds. A curve is used for split digraphs, so we put a curve on the top. Sometimes in some phonics programs, there's a curve below, we use a curve on the top, and again, it's only 3 sounds, although it's 4 letters, it's k, a, k, cake. The Year 1 Common Exception word list is this list here. This will be shared with you for term 2, so you'll have access to all of these common exception words by the end of the year. Definitely not in term 1. By the end of the year, the children are expected to recognize these words by sight. So being able to look at words such as no, they, said, words which can't be sounded out with their phonics knowledge, be able to look at them and be able to read them. Frequent practice to these words and exposure is key. So plenty of reading at home will always help. And also there are some practice websites online. I've linked one of them here, and I've linked at the end also. It's called spellingframe.co.uk, the website which I've linked. There is a paid aspect to it, but there's also parts of it which are free. And it is online, which sometimes some parents don't prefer using a device, but children tend to become engaged when there's a game or digital element. So 5 or 10 minutes on that should help them to recognize those common exception words. So a phonics lesson. Phonics lessons are 20 to 25 minutes long in Year 1. There are 4 sessions a week, and at the moment they've been going through 4 sounds a week. They work in phonics books and also on their whiteboards. They also have handwriting books as well, which eventually will help them to practice those sounds that they've been learning. Lots and lots of opportunity to consolidate and practice. TA interventions will begin in term 2.
Read your book.
TA interventions will begin in term 2, where if there are any children who are really struggling and haven't quite become secure in certain sounds, TAs will be working with those children to make sure those gaps are filled. There are several stages to a phonics lesson, which include saying the sound, reviewing the sounds previously taught, Fred talk, which, as I mentioned, is saying the sounds and then the children being able to read them. Alien words we are going to introduce in term 2 so that the children are ready and prepared for their phonics screening, as sometimes they try to make sense of a word. So we're going to make sure that they know there's such a thing as an alien or nonsense word, and then a real green word. Reviewing words from previously taught sounds, word time, which is where they get a chance to spell with their Fred fingers, and then Fred words, which, as I mentioned before, they've been structured so that the children know all of them by the end of Year 1. And then writing a sentence, which we find is really useful and important for the children, because phonics is about being able to apply that knowledge within a writing context as well as reading them. I will show you what that looks like now. So this is a typical lesson that your children would see. This is the first lesson that they will be seeing in term 2. So they will have gone through a very similar structure and format with the step 1 sounds, which are now almost complete. Now that we're coming to the end of term 1, term 2 starts with A, may I play. So as I said, the first stage of a phonics lesson is say the sound. So a teacher would do a lot of my turn, your turn. If you want to join in, please, I know you're all on mute, but please join in if you want to. So the teacher would say, my turn, A, your turn, and then the children would repeat it, and we'll do a lot of back and forth of my turn, your turn. Then the children would be introduced to the picture, and the teacher would explain the mnemonic associated with the sound and explain what's happening in the picture. And they also have a large one as well, which has both sides on it. So the mnemonic for this is, may I play? And the teacher would explain, we've got 3 children here, and one of them is asking, may I play? And then we would do a lot of my turn, your turn, may I play? The children would then repeat it, and then the teacher would say it, may I play? And the children would then repeat it. Lots of practice of saying that. The children would then maybe Fred talk a few of those words at the bottom, which are words such as day, play, may, way. So the teacher would say a, and the children would say may. A, the children would then say lay. Lots of back and forth, lots of practice of saying the sound in different words. And really then focusing on what that picture looks like, making that association with the mnemonic and the sound. Then we would do a recap. So the children would go through the different sounds. So the teacher would point at different sounds, k, g, and the children are really good at this. They're very speedy as a whole class. They recognize lots of the sounds, and the teacher quickly recaps any previously taught sounds, just as a little bit of almost recap and revision. We then move on to Fred talk with Fred, and then the teacher would, or rather Fred would say the sounds and the children would blend them. So the teacher would say d-a, day, modeling it, and then the children would then have a go. So if Fred is saying s-p-a, the children would then be expected to listen to the sounds and Fred read the word that Fred is trying to say, spray. Lots of practice. So the children would do that with a few of the words, this time being able to see the words on a green card. So they know it's green, so it's a green word, we can decode it, and they can see what it looks like on the board. They would then be introduced to the alien word. So a word the teacher would explain, oh, this is not a real word, ch-a, and the children would read it, che, discussing that that's a silly word, it's a nonsense word, it's not real, but it does have the sound A. We can identify the sound A. Another one, z-8. Zate, or is that a real word, children? Nope, alien word. And again, just really focusing on, is it real, is it not? Where can we see the sound that we're learning today? This time it's in the middle. We'll also begin to count how many sounds, so the children are aware. Although there's 4 letters, there are only 3 sounds. 1, 2, 3. They would then review the words. This is just, again, revision and recapping, so they're not forgetting any of the sounds that they learned from set 1. W, I, ink, wink. These are all sounds from set 1, but we don't want them to forget them. So we don't just focus on the sound of the day. We recap, recap, recap. We go over everything so that they're not forgetting any of the words previously taught. So lots of reading, lots of practice, lots of consolidation. Then it's time for the children to get their phonics books, their whiteboards out, and to have a go at applying the sound. So they'll have a picture, they will have the sound up, and the teacher will say the word that they are expecting the children to write. In this case, it is day. So what they would do, and this is a really fun game the children like to play, they would get the children to get their Fred fingers out, maybe hide their Fred fingers behind their back, and the teacher would say day, day, and we do my turn, your turn, da-a, da-a, and then they reveal their Fred fingers and counting how many sounds. How many sounds do you have, everybody? 2 sounds. Pinch the sounds, da-a, day. Then they have a go at writing it. So lots of saying the sounds and lots of Fred fingers and making sure that they really know the sounds before they have a go at writing it. We would do that with a few different words. So day, play, and a slightly harder one, spray. Again, just focusing on A in this context for writing. And they will then look at the red words for that sound associated with that sound. In this case, it is old and her. The teacher will have several different methods for getting them to really recognize and remember those sounds. The children might practice writing them. How many can you write in 30 seconds? How many, they might have the red word card and flip them, so the children are getting lots of exposure. It's just about them recognizing that these 3 letters make the word old and these letters make the word her. Finally, they would go to hold a sentence. We call it hold a sentence because we expect the children to be able to remember the sentence and then write it. So there's a picture associated with the sentence, and the sentence in this case is, can I stay and play? We would really have some fun with trying to remember that sentence. So the teacher would do my turn, your turn. Can I stay and play? And the children would then say, can I stay and play? We might say it in a whisper voice, can I stay and play? And the children would then say in a whisper voice, can I stay and play? We might say in a loud voice, can I stay and play? And the children say in a loud voice, can I stay and play? But just really embedding that sentence. We then might have a go at sounding it out on our hands, pinching those sounds. Then finally, the children would have a go at writing it. So really knowing the sounds, knowing the words before they have a go. So we call this hold a sentence, which is essentially dictation, the teacher dictating, and the children applying it independently using their phonics knowledge. And that is the basic structure of a phonics lesson. So if I go back to our PowerPoint, that was the steps of a phonics lesson and what your children will be going through in term 2. So they've gone through that same process for their set 1 sounds, and they'll be going through it for the set 2. As I mentioned before, that will be for set 2. Once they reach set 3, there will be a comparison lesson. So then they will look at comparing A, may I play? A, make a cake. What's the difference? Which words use A, may I play? Which words can we see using AY? Which ones use A split E? Where can we see any patterns? And lots of exposure and practice. So supporting at home, really the important part for you parents. Please do give them a chance to apply their phonics knowledge everywhere, in any instance. They are obviously learning new sounds every week, all the time. There are words everywhere. There are words when you are in the kitchen, there are words when you're out at the mall, words on road signs, even when they're sitting in the car board and waiting. What sounds can you see? What sounds can you identify that you learnt this week? Where can you see the sound A? Is it at the start? Is it at the end? Where can you see it? Which 2 letters is it? Always giving them that chance to show off and show the knowledge that they have and they've been learning with their teachers in school. Encourage them to use Fred in their head. We really know that the children use Fred Talk very much so in FS. We now want to really move on to Fred in their head, where they're able to read those words, and they're not needing to always sound them out, not always needing to say at cat. We want to get them to that point where they can see the word, Fred in their head, cat. Encourage your children to use their Fred fingers when they are spelling or writing at home. If you are ever doing any of that sort of practice, get them to get their Fred fingers out and keep pinching those sounds on their Fred fingers. Still praise your children, even when they spell a word incorrectly, but it is phonetically correct. For example, the word monkey, they've been learning about the monkey puzzle, so they've been writing lots about different animals from the story, and they've been obviously to Green Planet this week, and next week they'll be writing about animals for a really special week next week in terms of the Year 1 learning. So when they are writing the animal names, when a child has written monkey and they've tried to use their sounds, still they're getting lots of praise because they've used their sounds and for the knowledge that they have, they've spelt that correctly, which is great. So we obviously do correct them and say, oh, actually, that's a red word and it's spelt like this, but still praise them for when they do use their sounds because they are applying what they have learned. Once they do know all the sounds, so once we get to the end of set 3, please support them in helping to choose the right sounds. When they're reading books and you see, for example, a word like make or take, once they've learned that sound in their phonics lessons, really help them and say like, oh, we can see that one is A split E. They've not used A, may I play there. They've used A, make a cake. Why do you think that is? Where is the sound? And the really obvious ones being A, may I play comes at the end, and A, snail in the rain, AI comes in the middle. Just looking at the words in different patterns and exploring them with your child. Big don'ts. Don't use the letter names when reading and writing. Of course, we expect the children to know their alphabet, A, B, C, D, E. But in terms of reading and writing, we really want them to focus on what the sound being made is, either by a single letter or by 2 letters or 3 letters, which make one sound. Please don't forget to use pure sounds, really important. And as I mentioned before, they're readily available online if you just ever want to check what the pure sound is. They're often, when your class teacher has been sending home videos or any home learning associated with phonics, you can often hear the teachers really modelling it correctly as well. just a few games that you can play at home, just to make it fun. Optional home learning, you could consolidate the phonics sounds of the week sent by the class teacher. Please, if you have time to do this, I think that the children really find it fun, and they feel such a sense of achievement when they can show you. The children absolutely love phonics. They love their phonics lessons, and it's really exciting for them to know that they are able to read and recognize these what once were squiggly lines, and they are able to show mommy and daddy or whichever grown-ups at home what it actually says. So when you get a chance to consolidate those, anything sent home by your class teacher, I cannot emphasize enough, read, read, read. I will go over what options we have at WSO in terms of reading. It is one of the most powerful, important things you can do with your children. A few games. I Spy the Sound is a fun way to build your phonics skills and phonics awareness with your child. So ask your child to spy words that begin with a certain sound as opposed to a certain letter. So we all know I spy with my little eye something beginning with A, but that is the letter name A from the alphabet. But you could always say I spy with my little eye something beginning with the sound ah, which really helps the children with their phonics knowledge and the actual sound. Phonics hopscotch, where if it's a nice day outside and they want to play something outside, they can draw hopscotch markings, and in each square you could have some different sounds. You could have sh, oh, ah, lots of different sounds, and then the children can jump on the sounds to make a word. So you could say, oh, can you make the word hat? Can you make the word shop? Can you make the word tree? And them really having fun with that and making it a bit more interactive for them, as opposed to maybe just doing it online. A word or sound hunt. So when you're reading with your children at home, this can be really useful for identifying red words and also consolidating any sounds that they've already learnt. So if you've just read a page, say, oh, can you spot the sound A? Can you spot the sound ch? And seeing if they can really see those, so whether or not they really know them. And then lastly, you could, if you have time, do some dictation, choose some sounds which your child has already covered, and then you could have a go at doing the hold a sentence at home. So for example, the girl sat on the green chair. Once the children have their set 2 sound knowledge, then they should be able to hopefully write that sentence. They can maybe have a sentence writing race with you and see who can do all their dots and dashes, maybe underline the red words in red and do their dots and dashes for their green words. Children love it when things are competitive, especially if they think that they're beating their teacher or their parents. So that is always another fun one that you can do at home. In terms of reading at home, we are really lucky at WSO. We've got so many options for the children to read. You get your home reader books sent home by your class teacher each week. You have Bug Club, so you can access books digitally online. This really is a fantastic resource because it gives the children questions. So there are comprehension questions around retrieval and inference. The children find it so much fun because it's a little bug that they click on, and then they earn coins or rewards for all of the questions that they get correct, where they can then buy stickers in the sticker factory. So there's a lot of encouragement for them to do well on those. And then lastly, library books. In terms of library books, these are a little bit more free flow in terms of choice. So the class teacher often allows the child to choose it based on the child's interests, not necessarily suiting their reading level, which I think is important for children to have a degree of autonomy in terms of their choice and interests. Even if they're looking at the pictures and trying to make inferences, that's okay. There are the home readers and Bug Club, which your teacher will have assigned based on their reading level. So those will be appropriate for the stage at which your child is at in terms of their reading level. So in terms of how much reading you do, you've got lots of options and opportunities. Please keep reading sessions short and fun. So 10 minutes daily is so much better than 30 minutes once a week because it's more frequent, it's short, it's snappy, it keeps it fun and not too long-winded for the children. Some additional information. So parent information on Read Write Inc. can be found on the Ruth Miskin website. If you are on Google and you type in Ruth Miskin for parents, it will come up with a link which has more information for parents. There's some support videos, there's some free resources on that website. For the free spelling practice on spellingframe.co.uk, This isn't associated directly with Read Write Inc. However, it does have those common exception words that I mentioned. It does have some of the sounds, so you may be able to find the sound that your child is working on that week. It's just a free website, free resource that sometimes children find fun. And then there are free ebooks, lastly, on Oxford Owl. So Oxford Owl is where we get our home reading books from. They have free books online. And there's also a few tips and things around reading at home with your children. We will be having another parent engagement session, which is focused solely on reading with your children at home, what questions to ask, how to really support your children with reading and things like that. But there's also this website, which Oxford Owl have developed. In terms of digital apps, there is an app called Nessie. This is a paid-for app, so it's of course purely up to parents whether or not they choose to buy such apps for their children, but it is one available to you should you wish to do so. And that is everything. I really hope that was informative for you. I've tried to explain sort of the stage at which your children are at in term 1, where they will be headed in term 2, and the expectations for the end of the year. They really do enjoy and love their phonics lessons, and hopefully they do come home really excited about what sounds they've learned. Please do always ask them, what sound did you learn today? What sound did you learn this week? Give them a chance to really showcase and show off in terms of that knowledge. And really apply it by reading with them as much as you possibly can. Hopefully you've got all the information that you would find useful. As I said, I'm going to try to make sure that everybody gets, all year 1 parents get a copy of this presentation, or at least the links and things that I think would be useful to you at home in terms of really supporting your children, and get those to you through the class teachers. But for now, I will end our phonics parent engagement. Thank you so much for joining parents and taking time out of your day to really learn a bit more about phonics in year 1 and to support your children at home. Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you.